Man, the Rise of Skywalker. I'm so excited for this movie. Huh. Well, there's a showing of Cats. I mean, that can't be much worse. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Jared. Star Wars, Rise of Skywalker, the final movie in this Skywalker saga trilogy, 9-movie stint of Star Wars, a cultural phenomenon. Yes, I went out to the movie and saw Rise of Skywalker. The surviving Resistance faces the First Order once more as Rey, Finn, and Poe's journey continues. The final battle commences. So is the Rise of Skywalker the perfect end cap to this trilogy and 9-movie saga? Let's find out. But before I get into my thoughts, let me know what you guys thought of Rise of Skywalker, if you were able to check it out, or if you're very much looking forward to this end cap of Star Wars. Now let's get into some of the good. Oh man, okay, so the Rise of Skywalker, it was near impossible. It had an impossible task ahead of it to land this franchise saga to appease everyone, and I'm sorry, but it's just not going to do that. But looking at the positives of this film, this does feel like a Star Wars movie. I mean, visually and audibly. Yeah, audibly. The visuals of this movie, from blasters to spaceships to lightsabers, this is absolutely in the Star Wars world. Some of it might be safe, and we've maybe seen it in a movie or two prior. But the giant space battles and the speeder fights or speeder chases and the gun shootouts or blaster fights and explosions, this is big visual. The VFX in this look phenomenal. This is very much Star Wars. I will say that there's maybe a hiccup or two for a couple CGI characters. It's minimal compared to the overall runtime of the film, so I would say that that's forgivable. And then audibly, this again does feel like Star Wars. From the speeder, from the Millennium Falcon, the lightsabers hitting each other, lighting up, and explosions, space battles. I mean, everything sounds like Star Wars. Again, I mean, it looks good, it sounds good. That should make for a good movie, correct? Well, I'll get into that a little bit later, but I will also add on top of the positives, because I forgot it, was the humor. I thought that the humor in The Last Jedi, some of it did not land. There's a little bit, it's drawn back a little bit more. There is absolutely humor in The Rise of Skywalker, and I thought that it wasn't ever out of place. There was maybe one time that it felt a little ham-fisted. It felt, you know, I guess out of place, but the rest of the time it felt on brand with the character, the situations they were in, and kind of keeping this movie a little bit lighthearted, as well as, I mean, obviously it's tackling some heavy stuff and wrapping up this 9-movie saga, but it was much appreciated. I would say that it was more on brand for Star Wars than other films. However, like I said, this movie had the impossible task of sticking the landing, and unfortunately it just does not do that. And I think it's because J.J. Abrams coming in and Rian Johnson doing The Last Jedi, there was obviously not a clear vision. And watching this movie, you can absolutely tell that whatever is happening in this movie was not supposed to be even connecting to The Last Jedi, because the opening of this movie feels like whatever happened before was something completely different. Characters are introduced, character arcs don't entirely even make sense. Like, I'm confused thoroughly what Finn and Poe's direction and overall arc in this movie, plot points one by one, are supposed to be. They don't really go anywhere, and stuff that happens in this movie, it is almost assumed that there was this non-existent movie before this that somehow set all of this up, or kind of revealed that this is where the movie was going to go. It's all googly gop. None of it entirely makes sense, and it's unfortunate, because it does somehow steer this final movie and stick the landing for the trilogy. For the overall 9 movies, I don't think that it's satisfying. It's not warranted. It's not a great finish. but the plot points, yeah, are pretty much all over the place. And I think that the reason the plot points were all over the place, with 2 hours and 20 minutes, you gotta move. You got a lot of things to essentially fix from The Last Jedi, and you have a lot of things to set up and end in this movie. And unfortunately, the pacing is out of control. Right when the movie starts, you're in the middle of something and you're like, wait a minute, what happened? Was there 15 minutes before this that set all of this up? And then the next scene has something quick happens, and then the next scene, and the next scene, and the next scene. Honestly, the first 45 minutes felt like someone had sat on the remote, clicking fast forward, and you're just trying to catch images left and right. It's exactly that scene from Billy Madison where he's trying to learn Spanish, and they are just speaking it way too fast, and he's like, slow down. That's exactly how I felt for probably a majority of this movie, The Rise of Skywalker. I was like, slow down. I want to see what's going on, what kind of lore you're setting up, what kind of plot points you're setting up. I want to sit in maybe a scene or two a little bit longer, and the emotional beats. I want these emotional beats to hit rather than almost skimming over them. And I understand that maybe they had to skim over a bit because of Carrie Fisher's unfortunate passing, and they did not plan for that. Unfortunately, it feels like with the pacing and the googly gop of the plots, J.J. Abrams tried to jam 2 movies together, fast-forwarding, trying to pick the best plot points to somehow make a satisfying movie. And unfortunately, I feel like it was very fan-servicey, and it didn't land. As a fan, I don't think it landed. It might work for the casual fan, it might work for other people, but I thought that what J.J. Abrams, he basically took, if there was a second movie, he took the second half of that movie and jammed it together. So this is 1.5 movies that is only 1 movie. So a lot of it falls through the cracks, like I said. And I guess just into the performances, I'm not even into that yet, but they were fine. I wouldn't say anyone completely stood out. I wouldn't say anyone was completely trash. They again threw characters at the screen like, oh look, there's a fan servicey fun character. I know that person, but it didn't entirely serve the plot. Their performance, their lines, the delivery wasn't sharp. I would say that, for example, one character that has a little tiny role, Kerry Russell's character as this kind of bounty hunter smuggler character, what she had for the maybe 5 minutes of screen time, she was the best of this movie. I mean, I'm sorry, but Adam Driver and Daisy Ridley, you're the 2 kind of main cast, the characters in this film. And it fell flat. Their performances fell flat. There's, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a few times that it was just, they weren't essentially emoting what the character should have been feeling or how the character should have been acting in that scene. And I believe me, I'm far from an actor, but it just kind of took me out because it did not line up with what we had in the previous film and what we had maybe seen earlier in this film. And lastly, just a small thing because I'm probably running long, but the lore in this movie, again, it feels like there's a movie before this that there's a lot of stuff maybe set up or mentioned that just is new in this movie. And I understand with the video games, The Mandalorian, a lot of new lore. There's new abilities, essentially. And there's things in this movie that I thought were like, wait a minute, whoa. You're reaching a little bit there. You're reaching there. I don't know if you could actually do that. And again, I'm not going to knock the lore because that is something that is up to a ton of other people. They're just finally showing it on the big screen for the first time. So I thought that, I mean, jumping back to The Last Jedi where Leia is essentially going through the space with the Force, that was new. In this movie, there are brand new things as well. And I didn't think they all landed. Some do, some are cool, but I just thought that it didn't feel, that portion or the lore that they added did not feel like Star Wars to myself. Overall, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker had the impossible task of landing this 9-movie saga and 3-movie trilogy. Unfortunately, it doesn't. With it visually and audibly looking and sounding like Star Wars, with some of the humor also landing, but with a gobbledygook of plot points, it being very rushed when it comes to pacing, new lore that doesn't entirely land, performances that aren't the best, and it being a little bit fan-servicey. I mean, I'm going to recommend checking out The Rise of Skywalker because it's Star Wars, it's the end of this big thing, it's a cultural phenomenon, but if you're going into this movie hoping for this grand finish, hoping for all of these different things, unfortunately, that is not what you are going to get, and it lands in a McClunky fashion. In closing, I'm going to give The Rise of Skywalker 2.5 out of 5 new directors. So what do you guys think of The Rise of Skywalker if you were able to check it out, or if you're very much looking forward to checking this movie out? I want to know in the comments down below. Anyways, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Watch some more videos up there, movie reviews, trailer reactions, fun comedy skits. This is obviously a longer review because I had a lot to say. There's a lot that I did not say, so I'm going to be doing a spoiler review as well. That's probably going to be like 20-25 minutes because I have a lot to say about this movie. Follow all of my social media. Click that subscribe button. It seriously helps me out. And until next time, may the Force be with you.